welcome back to Two Peas in a Podcast, episode 15. As ever, thank you for being here. We are your very glamorous, gorgeous hosts, as ever. For those that don't know me, my name is Katie, and I'm in the UK. And I'm really happy to see you on this lovely Friday. How are you doing, darling?
I'm doing good. My name is Jessica. I'm in the US of A. Today is actually our Independence Day. So
It is. I don't know whether should I salute or what we doing. I don't know what we're doing.
it's a voluntary holiday.
Okay.
You don't have to celebrate.
I'll do double salute, right? There you go. Over there. We've just created something. That's the Two Peas in the Podcast.
My salute. That's my salute.
Yeah, anyway, that's a whole different podcast. Anyway. But yes, thank you for being here, guys. As ever, we are chaotic as ever, but we're all good. So, what are we talking about today, darling?
We are going to talk about one of my most favorite topics ever, which is past lives. I love talking about past lives. I love talking about reincarnation. I'm a big believer of it. I have my own theories and philosophies and everything. So I'm just really excited to get into this.
No, right? It's going to be super juicy as ever. And I'm sure it's really funny. We're like, I don't have that much to talk about. And then we get into it and it's like, oh, we have a lot to talk about, right? So,
yeah. Well, I have notes. I made notes.
I put statistics. Like, you girls are organized this week, I'm telling you.
We are.
What I will say before we start, as ever, everyone has different beliefs, and that's cool. We're not here to convert people. We're not here to preach. We're just sharing our beliefs. And if you have different beliefs, that's cool. We're a very open-minded, non-judgmental space, and we hope that you try to be the same.
Yeah, and I was going to say that we should probably start with why we reincarnate to begin with. Because I think that talking about past lives is okay, but I think it leads people to the question of, well, why would you even reincarnate in the first place?
Which, considering everything that's going on in the world, it's like, yeah, why would you want it?
I didn't even mean it to sound that way, but it's like with certain religions, there's like, let's take Christianity, for example. They have the belief system that you are born once and then you pass away and then you get put under judgment and you either go to heaven or you go to hell or whatever. Okay. But I have my own theories. So I don't know if you want me to go first on what I think, or if you want to go first, or
you go first. You give me your tea, girl.
So we all know one of the theories that is energy is never created nor destroyed. It's simply transferred from one situation basically to the next. And that's how I think about the soul. You know, I think that we are created and we are sent here to basically experience the human experience and be creators unto ourselves in the light of the greatest creator. I feel like our souls are meant to evolve and to go through life lessons and to grow. And so I feel like sometimes people, when they hear that, they're like, okay, but why? But for me, it all comes down to the concept of knowledge versus wisdom and that little bit of experience that you have to have in the middle. So I feel like we can know a lot of things in our soul as we were created. Like, we know that we're full of love. We know that we have unconditional love. We know we can forgive. But it's one thing to come and actually experience these things and then gather the wisdom. So I think that ultimately that's why we reincarnate, is to basically just evolve, learn lessons, and grow in our souls. And of course, experience what it's like to be the full scope of a human, which isn't always good. It's not always, rainbows and sunshines either. I am a firm believer that we do come here to experience the darker aspects of being human too.
Yes. You and I really are of the same mindset. I believe that we have soul lessons. Our soul is on a path of evolution. The ultimate goal of that, of course, we can speculate, but we don't know, of course. But ultimately, it is to evolve, and that is all shades, right? It is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because if it was just lovely, rainbow-filled, positive lessons, who wouldn't want to do that, right? But the thing about life lessons is sometimes they're hard. Sometimes we have to experience all shades, One of the key things that I share a lot with my clients is a short story. For those that haven't heard it, I really recommend that you check it out. It didn't change my mind. It really clarified and blew my head off, if I'm being honest. It's called The Egg. And it's by an author called Andy Weir. Weir is Weir. And you can find the short story online if you search it up. And honest to God, it is insane. It's so good. I mean, I don't know. I mean, basically, I can tell you about it if you want, but I don't want people to spoilers. What do you think?
I mean, it's up to you.
Okay.
You've given the spoiler warning, so if they want to cover their
Yeah.
ears, they can.
Yes. So basically, what it is that you die and you'll go up to and you start talking to this being, and this being walks with you, and you start to see different people as you're walking, and basically, you start to realize that all of them are you, that you have been every single soul on the earth at some point, right? That and because of time and space are fluid, and we know that time is not a straight line, it's a circle. You literally are everybody. You are Gandhi and Hitler. You are Trump and Jessica. You are everybody, right? And the whole point is you are learning lessons and you're growing through all of these incarnations. So you are the abuser and the abused. You are the victim and the torturer. And he says at the end of it, it goes, well, what's the point? Why did you do all this? He said, because someday you will become like me, because that's what you are. You're one of my kind, you're my child. Whoa, you said. You mean I'm a god? No, not yet. You're a fetus. You're still growing. Once you've lived every human life throughout all time, you will have grown enough to be born. So the whole universe, she said, it's just an egg. And I answered, no, it's time for you to move on to your next life. And I sent you on your way.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
Right? I was like,
Yeah.
why does that feel like it could be a thing?
I feel like that really actually encompasses pretty much how I feel about life and our experience, you know? And so that just really put everything into words there. I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to read the whole this, it's not long. It's a short story. It's on Google and it's free. So yeah, go and check it out. But it's in terms of this conversation about past lives, reincarnation. I think it just gives like a deeper take on things. That was all.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that really actually puts it into words of like why we reincarnate, why we experience the good, the bad. Because I have a lot of clients that come to me for like past life readings. And, it's kind of always awkward when I have to give them a life that's not so great, where they weren't really the good guy, you know? But those lives are valuable, you know?
Yeah.
And we learn from that. So that just was, yeah, perfect, really.
Everybody wants to be the hero of their own story,
Of
right?
course.
And we also want to always be this version of ourselves, right? So, if you see yourself as a kind, compassionate, helpful, loving person, the very thought that at some point you weren't in one of your past lives can be really jarring. It can
Yeah.
really, you try not to take it personally. Like, well, I would never do that. You're like, well, no, because it wasn't you. It is you, but it's not you, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a different experience that you're
Yeah.
having, you know? I think that the fabrication of the soul is encompassing everything that you've been, you know? But just like we come down here and we have spiritual amnesia with our soul contracts and what life we're meant to live and this and that, it's the same for everything that we've experienced. So that's why sometimes it's like when we do go back home, I feel very strongly that everything suddenly makes sense, that we come into total clarity and awareness, you know? So whereas before, where we would never see us doing these like monstrous acts or not understanding why we maybe chose a life of suffering, when we go back home, we completely understand. And
Yeah.
I also think that we're not as emotionally attached to the things that happen here too.
Yeah.
So there's no judgment on the other side of like, oh, you were this bad person and you did this. It's just that, maybe you made choices that didn't evolve your soul in the way that you had thought that you were going to. And maybe you need to come back to try again, make different choices. But either way, the experience that you had was valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. But of course, again, people that have, been the victim of really nefarious people in this lifetime, that can be also a thing that's difficult to sit with, right?
Yeah.
That because we like to believe, I think, in justice and karma and divine retribution, right? So
Mm-hmm.
think of like, and I, you and I don't believe in hell as a physical place, but people, genuinely want to think that, well, if somebody was vile to me, well, there'll be something. But this conversation, maybe it's part of their soul growth, which again can be quite a difficult thing to sit with.
Well, I think that's because us humans, and I'll put myself into this category because I've seen things on the news where I'm like, I hope that person fries.
Yeah.
I mean, like we've all experienced these things. We want instant gratification. As we talked about in a recent podcast, we can be very impatient. When we want it now. So the idea of karma coming back to give somebody the energy that they've put out, it doesn't satisfy that need that we have to see that justice take place right now. So even if you were told, okay, this person has tortured and abused people, but in their next life, when they're born, they're actually going to be born to parents who are very abusive. Okay. So they're going to be put into the situations that they put other people through. It still wouldn't be good enough for you.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of you that would believe, well, what if that isn't even true? I want them to suffer right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So and I've said this before about karma, it's not necessarily a punishment or a judgment. It's more about your energy being given back to you. But some people do see it as a punishment or a judgment, especially if it's something that you're getting that it wasn't great that you put out and now you're receiving that back. It's like, you got your karma, So it can be really hard. But at the end of the day, if anybody who's watching this, you get upset or you get triggered because you don't want people who have done bad things to go back to a creator that loves them unconditionally, there is forgiveness that you need to work on within your own heart. Because it's truly not about the other person and their journey. It's about your own forgiveness and coming to an understanding and acceptance of what's happened to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And forgiveness doesn't mean like, that suddenly you've forgotten everything they've done. It's about freeing yourself, which that's a whole separate conversation. But
we might have to do a podcast on forgiveness because it comes up a lot.
It does. And it's a very complex issue. So maybe that was something we will look at, definitely. The other thing that I went to ask you, because I think, and as someone who's kind of done a bit of this work themselves, the other thing I found that comes up is that people really want to be famous people in a past life.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about how we all experience every aspect of being a human, then you were at some point. In some life, you were well-known, famous, whatever. It's the validation of wanting to feel great, wanting to feel
admired. For sure.
And I don't know if it always happens. That's funny.
Oh, she's giving that look like she's got something to show me.
It's funny that you brought that up because I don't know if you wrote down any of your past life experiences to share, but I wrote down some of mine. And one of them actually is me being somebody that is pretty well known that I haven't actually publicly said that I believe that I was this person. I know, it's the tea, guys. We're spilling the tea here. But before I get to that, I wanted to say, I also feel like when it comes to past lives, there's the energetic imprint of when you've been to places and you recognize that place. I mean, you've talked about that before with seeing an old shack or something in the woods and having that instant, recognition of that. So what do you think it feels like, or what do you think happens, excuse me, when you walk on the same place that you walked before, or you go to the same place that you've been before?
I would argue that could be a form of deja vu.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when it can really, your brain is desperately trying to, this feels weird. Right. And sometimes deja vu from a scientific perspective, a psychological perspective, is essentially your brain has processed the same thing twice very quickly, which is why it feels like this feels really familiar, because it does.
Interesting.
But from a spiritual point of view, I could argue that, it's like your soul is recognizing that this is familiar because something similar has happened or you've been somewhere before.
Yeah.
I would argue that's where souls know each other. You know that feeling when you meet someone And rather than like it's awkward and you have to get to know each other, there's that instant connection, like instantaneous. Like this, like you're not starting on chapter 1, you're starting on chapter 20. Like there's so much familiarity. That to me is like you've known that person.
Yeah. Those connections get me into trouble, especially of the opposite sex. I'm always like, you're the one. And it's like, no, honey, no, I'm not. Okay. I am not the one. All right.
I saw a meme that made me laugh my head off. That spiritual thing of like, I can see their lights. Honey, trucks have light. You're about to get run over. Move out the way.
Anyways, no, I definitely understand what you're saying. And I feel like that's the thing too, is that when we meet people and we recognize them from a past life, it's like you can always just basically get ready and assume that there's going to be a lesson that's going to be attached to this somehow. Okay. And I actually have a very controversial theory. And then this is something that, again, like we talked about earlier, a lot of people they can't wrap their head around it, and it makes them feel very uncomfortable. But I actually feel that the people that hurt you the worst here on life are actually your most closest allies on the other side. And I know people are like, there's no way.
Let me do that.
There's no way. I feel like this because I am a firm believer in that adversity gives us our biggest lessons. And our biggest lessons are our blessings here. And who else would give you your biggest blessings, your biggest lesson other than a best friend, right? Somebody that, they are there and they're like, I know that this is going to be painful. And so I'm going to be the one that gives this lesson to you, delivers this lesson for you. And that is, again, when you're on the other side and you're looking at this from a very emotionally detached standpoint and not like the victim and the ego of, well, you're hurting me, and you understand that there's a lesson that's involved in this that your soul wants to learn, you're like, thank you. Thank you for coming in and giving me that lesson because I needed it or I wanted it or this is what we plan to do. We plan for you to come in, meet me, hurt me. Thank you, right? Thank you for doing what you meant to do. I know that it's very controversial, and I know people are like, there's no way. I can
feel the energy of the audience being like, no.
And again, that's why it's just a theory, I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, but I just feel like sometimes our biggest teachers are the people that hurt us. And I feel like that is, I don't know, something that if our soul really craves the lesson, then wouldn't we be thankful for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Of course, the other thing is that, when you have a close connection with and I'm talking like family, best friends, that kind of thing, you guarantee that they are what's known as your soul family, and you've been with those people in different ways through every part of your journey. So we talked about this before. I'm convinced at some point Jess and I were different genders and were probably married. I'm convinced that at some point my daughter was probably my mother. It's that kind of thing. And you are taking different roles because there are different lessons to learn in that connection.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I also think that when you are living these incarnations with each other, you will work out karma and also earn karma with each other. So maybe you had made a soul contract that you were going to come here and you were going to resolve some kind of issue and you just didn't get around to it this lifetime. I feel like you'll try it in a different way.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if you have a soul that you're trying to learn unconditional love with, I do feel like that soul will show up in every single form possible. Like the good, the bad, the ugly, they'll keep showing up, which can be really frustrating. It really can, especially when you have like the soul recognition and you're just like, I don't want to meet you ever again. Like I had a guy one time tell me, and at the time I thought this was so romantic. He told me, I'm going to find you in every lifetime. I was like, oh,
that's a warning.
So romantic, And then after it's done with, it's like serial killer.
I got that song by, was it The Police? Every breath you take, I'll be watching you.
Please don't find me again. Please, 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 please don't find me again. Okay. And it's just so funny because it's like, yeah, he probably will find me again. and maybe just in a different way. So I don't know. And I don't pretend to have all the answers to reincarnation, past lives. There's so much that I just don't understand or I don't know, which is why I've just spent my life developing my own philosophies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we get into our personal stories and what, I have statistics. Mia's got them this time. I was like, I'm doing the statistics this time. So this is an American site, so but the Pew Research Center conducted a study on New Age beliefs and found that 1/3 of Americans believe they would be reborn in another body after death. Interestingly, they found that women were 1.4 times more likely to hold this belief than men. So 33% of Americans believe in reincarnation.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
I kind of feel like that's a low number, but
Me
maybe.
too.
Well,
Me too. 65% more people believe in reincarnation now compared to 20 years ago.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it says reincarnation appears to be making a comeback, pun intended. 36% of Catholics believe in reincarnation.
Wow. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's more connected to things like Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism. So yeah, it's surprising. But yeah, I mean, I suppose if you really go down the rabbit hole, and nobody shoot me in the comments, but if you're talking about Jesus's reincarnation, which I know he was not human, obviously, but you can see where the seeds are kind of laid, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Yeah. 70% of people who remember a past life remember dying a violent or unnatural death. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest, right? It doesn't surprise me because, of course, you're going to remember them more.
Yeah, I think that we remember the traumatizing things that happened to us. It's like imprinted on your soul.
Yeah, absolutely. Upon further analysis of over 2,000 cases, they determined the cause was likely due to another factor. 30% of cases he studied involved a past life of someone who had died a natural death. These cases were evenly split between males and females, reflecting the general population. However, of the remaining 70% of cases where the past life ended in accidental or a natural death, a whopping 73% involved men.
Wow.
So, although women are more likely to believe in past lives and reincarnation, of the men that do, most of them believe that they died violently.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know, it feels kind of like, I can see that, right?
I mean, there's been a lot of wars.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, traditionally, men were the ones that went and fought. So, it all kind of adds up. This is cool. 9% of people who remember a past life exhibit an unusual skill related to that former life.
Yes.
Right? So I wonder, so somebody like Beethoven, Mozart, I mean, you kind of wonder that was such, I mean, Beethoven could play the piano by the age of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you wonder, obviously, maybe not, but it could be like he's come into another lifetime and he still has that kind of skill.
Yeah. I mean, it would make you question almost if that's what a savant is.
Mm.
Which my son, he had that same thing where he was able to read.
Yeah.
And he knew things about space that I never taught him. And there was no way for him to learn. He just knew.
Yeah.
So maybe that was from a past life.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an amazing
question it.
Yeah, there's an amazing book I read, and I can't remember the title of it, but it's about a boy who he came into this lifetime and he vividly knew scores of a baseball team. He knew the players. He could talk about them when they came to his house. Thankfully, the parents didn't shut it down because I think a lot of spiritual amnesia comes from not being believed, right? And wanting to just be normal, quote unquote. So they kind of explored it. And yes, even the family connected now believe that he's the reincarnation of a baseball player.
Yeah. I've read a couple stories like that.
Yeah.
There was this one kid that he swore he was an actor, and they actually traced him back to an actor that had passed away, I think on a set of a movie or something. So it was just really interesting. I think if I had to say there's anything, like, it would definitely be like tarot. Like, even though it came to me later in life, I didn't really have to learn it.
Yeah.
which I know pisses people off because people will be like, how did you learn tarot? And I'm like, I don't even know. I just knew it. Like I've never studied it, never looked up what any of it meant or anything. I just knew it. And I do think that I was like a reader in a past life or had something that had happened at some point. I mean, I think I've been so many things, it's ridiculous. So
I can see that. In a nice way. Oh, bless you. 35% of people who remember dying accidentally in a past life have an extreme fear of dying the same way again. Right? So let's say you died in a plane crash, for example. The study is saying then you're more likely to have like a severe phobia of flying because it's like soul PTSD.
I truly believe that. And I know that with my own experience of the throat stuff, the choking stuff. You know that's a huge phobia of me.
Yes.
But I actually think that people who experience that in the past and they have that phobia, that it's not actually going to happen that way in this lifetime. It's just, I think that it's just so imprinted. Like it's hard, you know, like, because I don't know why I have that fear, but it's just so embedded in me.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a side, I know that they say that people who have birthmarks, it connects to how you could have died in the past life. So, for example, my mom has a very significant birthmark on her arm, and you can't help but think it's actually in the shape of the UK, which is hysterical. But you can't help but think like it's so prominent. You wonder whether that is connected to how she passed at some point.
I actually do think birthmarks can have something to do with that. My family, we all have a birthmark. Everybody has something. And I don't know, you know, my birthmark is a slit across my throat. So, you know, I don't know, which makes a lot of sense with the throat stuff. But I'm telling you, if you look up, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's like a literal, like a slit. So I don't know.
And you like that. Moving on. No. Let's get through. I've got a couple more. 26% of people who remember a past life demonstrate some other form of ESP. So things like clairvoyance or telepathy or anything like that.
Yeah.
Which again, you're like, well,
yeah. A lot of these, I agree with these statistics. Yes. So
20% of people who remember a past life believe they lived as a deceased family member. That goes back to that soul family thing I was talking about before.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So, like,
interesting.
Great auntie Mildred passed away when you were 2, and then a baby's born, and you think, gosh, she's like just like her, and she has so many like traits and stuff that like Auntie Mildred had. There is the belief that she could be the reincarnated person.
Well, I've actually experienced something like that before. My brother, he passed away. My oldest brother, Brian, he passed away when I was 17 years old. He, at the time, had a girlfriend, Shanoa, and he was madly in love with her. It was his first love. Well, you know, he passed away and years went by, and she ended up having a baby. And she had a little girl. And when I tell you, this little girl looks just like my brother, and Shanoa doesn't look like my brother. Me and my mom, like our family, we were shocked when we saw this child. Like even as she's growing, she looks like Brian. And a lot of us think that, yeah, he reincarnated to be with her in whatever way, which is obviously to be her daughter. But it is just, I mean, people, I feel like watching will be like, okay, but if I showed you a picture of my brother and then I showed you a picture of her daughter, you guys would be like, wow, like it was just a spitting image of him. It's crazy.
It is crazy how it happens, you know. Yeah, I agree totally. It really is. Last one. 20% of people who remember a past life also remember something from the time between death and rebirth.
Okay.
So the in-between, basically why you are the soul waiting to be reborn. And they remember something that wasn't necessarily human, if you like.
Okay.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, that is interesting. Because it just makes me think back on things that I've had visions of, and I'm wondering if these things were like a past life, or maybe it was some sort of like in between. I don't know. But definitely
so interesting. interesting statistics, and again, it's all kind of affirming from that study what we agree with them, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I agree with most of those, if not all of them. Well, good job. Well done, Katie. You get a gold star on your homework. You get a gold star on your homework. Okay, I guess we should start getting into the personal stuff now. And we can go back and forth if you want to. I might have a lot more than you because I wrote down quite a few things.
Absolutely. So I'll let you start, and then I'll do mine. And if it gets that you have more, that's fine. Because I know like it's a big thing for you.
First of all, I want to talk about the nostalgia that can come through. I went to something that you don't remember necessarily. Like there's no reason for you to have nostalgia for it. For instance, I've always had a very big calling towards the mountains, as you know.
Yes.
And I did live in the mountains for like a year of my life when I was younger, but I just don't know if that's enough of a reason to say like that's why I feel like I'm meant to be in the mountains. I just feel like when I look at the mountains, I feel like home. It's a weird feeling. And also the same with fall time.
Yeah.
Like when fall time hits, I don't know why, but I get like nostalgic for like this place that I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if something significant happened in the fall in a past life or whatever, but yeah, I just like certain nostalgia for things. It's just weird. I don't know. That's just a little one for my first one because it has impacted me,
I can kind of agree with that from my own experience, because ever since I can remember, so one of my earliest memories, like even before I had concept of geography and the world and anything, is that New York calls me, and I don't know why. I've never been to New York ever, but there is something about New York that when I see imagery or pictures or videos, I feel it's the only way that I can describe it is an ache. That it's really deep. It's like, it's not just like, oh, I'd love to go. It is so much more than, oh, I want to go. It's like, I have to go. I've been there before. It's like, it's really like, it's almost around the stomach belly button area. I ache for it. So there's something there has to be.
Yeah, and that nostalgia feeling or that ache that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like there's a weird, like very much feeling compelled.
Yeah.
And it almost makes you want to go just to see what would happen.
Absolutely. Hopefully it would meet up to expectation.
Hopefully it wouldn't be one of those, what is that singer, Alanis Morissette, with the Isn't It Ironic song? Yeah. Where she's like, you go your whole damn life to take that flight, right? It's like, okay, right. You go to New York and something bad happens. But no, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why there's that feeling of like the soul pool is what I like to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. There is something, and that's, of course, where my whole thing started. For those that haven't watched that episode of the podcast about when we talked about phobias, and I spoke about the bird situation with me, and we would drive past in the car like forests or woods or whatever, and I would see old abandoned buildings, and God, I would literally feel sad.
Yeah.
Even if like there was no logical reason for me to be sad, sun's shining, there's good music in the car, we're having a good day. But I would look at this building and I would just get this like deep sadness would come over me, and this ache, like that soul ache again. And of course, then from the work that I did, I realized, well, that was one of the places that I lived when I was in that lifetime.
Yeah. It's crazy how you remember these things,
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it doesn't have to be logical. Like if you share these with people who aren't this way in terms of their beliefs and stuff, they're going to think you are Luke Dilla, 7 Shades of Coco, right? Like literally they will look at you like, yeah, all right, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not about trying to convince people. It's about you connecting with your own deep truth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really take too much time to worry about the opinions of other people when it comes to my beliefs, just because it's like, you can believe what you want to believe and it doesn't bother me. I've spent my time really developing my own philosophies and having my own experiences, and that's where this comes from. So if you don't agree with it, well, that's okay because you haven't had my experience. It doesn't bother me. I know that there's we live in a following culture where everybody wants to fit in, everybody wants to be the same, but that's just not my vibe. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just going for anybody watching who's a bit like, oh, I've tried to share this with my partner or my best friend, and they look at me like I'm, what? It's okay. It's okay. It's not about them. It's about you. As long as you recognize there's something there, that's what's important.
Yeah. Well,
Different strokes for different folks.
I heard a gremlin in the back. No, it would, that would be a whole nother conversation about being around a partner and people that you can't share your whole authentic self with. But that's a conversation for another day. So, it's what
absolutely. So give us a big juicy one, babe. I feel like we were desperate to kind of hear. Tell us the juice.
Oh gosh. Okay. I feel like I'm going to be like totally made out to be not credible anymore after I say this. Okay. So I believe that I was Geronimo. Okay. I know that's like crazy to say that, but I have reasons for this. Okay. I've had dreams of running away from like military people, but like way back in the day, like in the like Civil War type of area, get ups and stuff. And I've also had dreams about trying to like avenge my family because something happened to them. Now I didn't know what anything about Geronimo. I didn't up until like maybe a year, a half, maybe 2 years ago. I didn't even really know anything about this dude. I had went to Colorado on a trip, and I was looking around like a Native American shop, and there was like pictures of different Native Americans and everything. And I have it up on my ancestor wall. There was this picture of this guy, and he was kneeling and he was holding a gun. And for some reason, I just really felt connected to that picture. And I was like, so I bought it. And then I came home and I framed it and all of this stuff. Well, then I was talking to one of my friends, and she's a psychic, and we're not really friends anymore, but at the time we were friends. And she said that for some reason they kept saying the name Geronimo to her. And I was like, I don't know, maybe because you know how like sometimes you have that saying of like Geronimo, where you do something before you do something crazy. And I was like, I don't know, maybe they feel like, maybe my spirit guides feel like I'm about to do something crazy. And she's like, I don't know, they keep saying Geronimo. And for some reason, I like glanced up at my picture. And this is how unaware I am of things sometimes, like not even paying attention. At the bottom of the picture, it has Geronimo on it, like the name Geronimo. And I didn't even realize, I just liked the picture, picked it out, didn't even read the little inscription at the bottom, didn't even look at it, glance at it, nothing. And I don't know, I felt so connected. And then when I read his story about how like his whole family was killed and he was like just consumed by revenge and hatred. And, he was like a badass too. Like he really was. Like he beat all kinds of like military people by himself, and he would like stage setups and everything. And he was always like escaping from them. They weren't able to like ever catch him and everything. It was just really crazy how like I really connected with his story, and it felt so like nostalgic to me for some reason. So I'm not saying that I was Geronimo, okay? I just feel like, I don't know. I feel so connected to this guy. And also, he was a Gemini, and he was born June 16th. So I don't know. I just, it feels weird even saying it. I feel people are like, yeah, okay, you're Geronimo. I don't know, but there's something about his energy that I feel so connected to. And even when you look at his picture, and I want to go grab it, but even when you look at his picture, and if you were to look at my family, we have like similar faces. It's just so weird. I don't know. So there you go. That's the
Don't get all, in your feels about it. That is again, as I just said, this is not about convincing or proving. This is your deep truth. And, the way that happens with that picture, and then what the friend said, and then you saw that actually was a picture of him. I mean, there's too many synchronicities just to go, oh, that was just coincidence. But for people watching who think it is, that's fine. But we're saying this is not about you. This is about Jess's deep truth.
I love that you're in Mama Bear mode. I don't think we're going to get attacked in the comments.
I'm always in Mama Bear mode because that's my vibe. I swear. We're talking about.
I don't think that anybody's going to like freak out and be like, you're crazy.
I can't help it. I am a mama bear mode most of my life. Who I am. So I'm like that. Leave her alone. I'll come and beat you up.
He's like, whoa, nobody's gonna say anything.
What can I say? I'm protected for people that I love. I can't help it. I'm like, I am the least. What's hysterical is I am the least, as Jess will tell you, the least confrontational, the least violent, the least angry person you'll ever meet in your life. Like literally, I don't do confrontation, but I can't help it. I'm just like that. What did you say about my friend? I can't help it.
I think it's gonna be okay. I don't think anybody's gonna be even feeling like it's weird or anything.
Well, not now.
Well, yeah, I mean.
I'm not going to say anything. They're not now. They'll be like, Kate, you'll come for me. It's fine.
This is one of the most chaotic episodes ever. Okay, like what is happening here? Okay, I want to go ahead and say one more really quickly.
Okay, go. You go. We'll calm down.
So I'm going to, people are going to remain nameless to protect the innocent and the guilty, okay? So I met this couple, and I'm not going to get into the whole personal details of anything, but I was strangely connected to this couple, and not in the greatest of ways. Like, it was really volatile. There was a lot of issues, but there was this weird, like, pull and connection to them that I could not describe. And there was like this weird dynamic too, that I was just like, why is there this dynamic here? And I had a very strange dream. And I had a dream about the husband. And in that dream, I was African American, you know, and I was heavily pregnant. And it looked like it was like back in like, honestly, like slave times. Like I was a slave. That's what it looked like. My clothing, everything. That's what it felt like. And I remember being like very heavily pregnant. But I remember him being on top of me and choking me. And he was looking down and he was looking into my eyes and he was saying, I'm sorry, but I have to do this. I don't have a choice. And I had gotten the strange feeling that that baby was his. And that actually is something that is very historically accurate. Like that happened a lot where whether he was a slave owner or whether he was just somebody who should not have been messing with a Black woman at that time, I don't really know. I do suspect that he was actually a slave owner, and I do suspect that I was one of the slaves. That's just how it's coming across to me. But I don't know. I just very vividly, I'll never forget that, you know, and he looked like him, but yet a little bit different. It was weird, but he looked like him, but different. And I'm sure people right now are like, oh my God, why were you dreaming about him and all this stuff? But it was just like a whole messy situation. That's where we're going to leave it at. It was a whole messy situation. But basically, I bring that up because I do feel like that was a past life like vision of one of my deaths, you know, of being choked to death. And so I don't know. It was just something that I'll never forget, like having that dream. I'll never forget that.
And that's the thing, you know, we've had an episode on dreams, but your dreams, I mean, we talk a lot about your dreams because you have the wildest, crazy dreams.
Yeah.
Like, guys, seriously, you should listen to my messages I get every morning off Jess. 9 times out of 10, it's like, I had the weirdest dream last night. Your dreams are out there, right?
They're always weird. I don't know why.
But a lot of the ones you have do actually provide spiritual truths and guidance and insights, right? So as you've mentioned already, you know, you're getting downloads and messages in that space. It's where you know, obviously you can take it and it's relevant.
Yeah. I mean, you know, and I feel like that dream was to show me why there was this unnatural pull towards this couple, why I was feeling the way I was feeling, you know, and why they were possibly feeling the way they were feeling about me.
Yeah.
Because there was something about them that always kind of wanted to maybe put me in my place a little bit or rule over me a little bit. It was a very weird dynamic, like I said. And so when I was given that dream and that glimpse into that life, it just really made sense to me, you know? And I don't think that either one of them would be able to take that, to be honest. Like if I was to sit down and have a conversation with them, especially the guy, because he prided himself on being so humane and humanitarian and all this, that I don't think he would ever think that he would ever actually own slaves. But it was just a really crazy like experience. So I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's the thing with these events, these circumstances. Like I've said, there is the logical side of it, the conscious mind side of it. It tries to find patterns. It tries to make sense of things. But you're trying to make sense of the senseless. You're trying to find patterns, and sometimes there aren't any, because you're talking about things that go beyond our, 3D lived experience most of the time.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I do try to like make sense of things. Like I'll try to like add up like the dates and the different timelines and stuff, like, between like Geronimo, for instance, and slavery. Like, was that even possible? And like things like, it's just like, I don't know. You can't make sense of it though. After a while, you just have to accept it for what it is,
That's the point. It is what it is. And I know, like, that is one of our sayings. Jess and I have a lot of sayings, but one of them is, it just is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about mine. So yeah, again, I've mentioned one of them previously in the phobia episode. If you're interested, you can go back and watch that. It's also a really good episode. It's as they all are. But this is a slightly different one. So, like you, actually, I was getting a lot of dreams. This was even before my spiritual awakening in 2010. I would have a lot of dreams about, I was in this, what can only really be described, I suppose, as like a temple slash palace. It's the only way I can describe it, because there was a lot of crystals, a lot of quartz crystal, and there was lots of light, but it felt spiritual, but it also felt, there was a regal feel to it as well, right? And I dream about this place a lot, and I was just like, that's a weird dream, because again, sometimes dreams they just are what they are. And of course, we're picking stuff up all the time, right? So I'm thinking, well, maybe like I've watched a TV show or I've watched a movie, right? And it's kind of imprinted in my brain. That's how it's coming out. Anyway, and I swear, I don't think I've ever told you this. It was the weirdest thing. So when I was working with the guy who helped me with the angel connection, we did a lot of it was guided meditations. And he actually was the one that first, which actually we haven't mentioned yet, which is the Akashic Records. For those that don't know, the Akashic Records, from my understanding, is in a higher dimension, and it is a record of everything that has ever happened, is happening, and will ever happen. And you can connect to it personally, and you can find out your truth, your destiny, your connections. Like, it's both your soul's journey. It's fascinating. It's a whole separate episode. But anyway, so we were doing a guided meditation on this space, and he went, "Huh, this is all." By the way, we're not in person. This is all on call. And I went, "As I can't really see him." And I went, "What?" And he went, "Well, that's weird." I went, "What?" I was like, "What? Tell me." And he went, "I'm getting Atlantis." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, shut up." Like, that's like literally like my very British, passive aggressive, sarcastic tone. Yeah, whatever. And he went, "Katie, I'm being serious. I see you. You were a high priestess in Atlantis." And I'm like, again, my own human Katie Oman imposter syndrome was like, yeah, me, a high priestess in Atlantis. I don't think so. And he described, and I hadn't told anybody, he described what I'd seen in my dream.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, down to exactly. And I got, like, my mouth was like, because I thought, I've told nobody about that dream. And he's literally just, it's like he was there. And I mean, I get goosebumps thinking about it now. It was real. And to have, not that you need confirmation from other people. I mean, obviously Jess does do past life readings, and they're amazing. Nice little plug. But you don't need confirmation from anybody else. It's your story. It's your truth. But there is something in it when it comes from somebody else that you're just like, that is a different level, right?
Yeah. I just find it interesting that out of everything crazy that's happened to you in your life, that's what shocks you. Like, like that just, I don't know. Cause it's just like, well, obviously, you're incredibly psychic, incredibly gentle. You're connected to the water, you know, you want to be near the ocean.
Yeah.
I just feel like, yeah, that makes sense.
It does. It does, but it does. I hadn't gone through my whole self-love journey at that point, so my self-esteem was quite low at that point. And so to accept that and hear that, like my ego just wanted to push it away. But again, as we said at the top of this episode, is that I am in this human body. I am Katie Oman in the UK in this lifetime, but that doesn't mean that other lifetimes with other bodies and other situations and other abilities are not possible. Even if I can't access that in this lifetime, doesn't mean I couldn't access it in a previous lifetime.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and also I do think that somebody kind of validating that for you is helpful.
Yeah.
It makes it more real.
Absolutely. Do you think, it's an interesting lead question actually, do you think if you, and I know we've talked about, karma and your soul experiencing different aspects and different, the good, the bad and the ugly, as it were, if you are a psychic healer, any kind of that kind of vibe, do you think there's a possibility that you kind of always have been on some level?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, it's the archetype, right?
Yeah, sure.
If you're playing that archetype in this lifetime, I also think that maybe, you can also be born into an incarnation where you don't believe in that stuff at all and you're an atheist.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like everybody has that ability within them. I feel like the soul is infinite. So yeah.
Me too. But they're really from my own, I mean, I used to give my own past life readings at one point, but my own personal experiences, they're the two that really stood out for me. Was the healer / witch incarnation and the high priestess Atlantis incarnation.
Yeah. I think that you've been feminine a lot.
Yeah, I feel that.
You know what I mean? And I actually think I've been masculine a lot.
Makes sense.
I just feel like I have.
Yeah. Genuinely, when I said I think we were married in a previous lifetime, I think you were probably my husband. I hope you were a nice one.
There's no telling. You know what I mean? As long as you behave. No.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like my personality is very masculine. I feel like I can be very militant.
Yeah.
Very direct. And I do. That's why I'm saying with Geronimo that fits me so well.
Like, I'm not arguing with you. I believe you.
No, it just blows my own mind sometimes because I argue with myself. I'm not arguing with anybody else. I argue with myself. Is that truly real? But just that connection of her saying that, because I was like, I just want to know who I am, And then they keep saying Geronimo. And then when I saw that, I was like, okay, last one for me. Because there's so many, but I just wanted to get some of the significant ones. My connections to the Pleiadians.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because I am definitely a big believer in star seeds. And it's funny because me and Katie, we'll have our conversations and stuff, and I'll be like, well, I just don't understand. I just don't understand humans. I just don't understand why they do these things and why they think this is valuable and why they care about this and why they care about that. And you're like, well, honey, you're a star seed. And so for you, human stuff, you don't understand. It doesn't make sense to you. And I found that that's actually really comforting that I'm not from.
Yeah, because to clarify for those that are like, what the hell is she talking about? A star seed is where your soul does not originate from planet Earth. So at some point you have from a different galaxy, different star system, and you've chosen to come to planet Earth as part of that soul growth. So literally, human beings and human nature is the alien. It literally is just speaking a different language. You don't understand people, and you feel like you do not belong here.
Yeah.
And everyone in the comments is like, me.
Yes, because there are actually more star seeds, I think, than people realize. And that's the thing is I can't describe the amount of happiness that was within me when I first came to the understanding of the notion that I might not be from Earth. This might not be I was like, thank you. Because I do not belong here with these people. These people are nuts here. It is ridiculous. I just don't like it. I mean, I think that nature itself is pretty, and I think that animals are pretty, but humans and the way that things are ran, I just don't understand it. So, as you know, I've always had a very strong connection to Germany and the German culture.
Yes.
One would possibly say maybe because I was raised by a German and I had a very strong influence from that from my Oma. My stepdad was born in Germany, and then of course she was from Germany, and so I had a lot of that influence in my life. But I've also always felt very attracted to the tall, blonde, pale for some reason, which I am not. Okay. Which is why I think when people are like, okay, you think you're from the Palladian star group, they're like tall, hun, and they're white and they're blonde. And it's like, I don't know. I just feel like I fit in. So but I have had so many dreams of being around these tall, white, blonde, pale beings. And they look human until you really start to look at their face, because their face, they have like bigger eyes that are kind of more like situated a little bit on the side. It's weird. Like they're in the front, but they're kind of like on the side. And I've had one of my most significant memories is being in a field, and it was a wheat field, and there was a boulder behind me, and I was sitting leaning on this boulder, and I felt like I was waiting for somebody. And then all of a sudden this what looked like masculine came up from like the bottom of like the hill or whatever, and he came up over the top and he started walking towards me, and he was extremely tall, and he had a blue, like, I don't know, some kind of space Star Trek whatever type of suit on. It was like a blue onesie, but it was like all the way like arms and everything and pants, no like separation, just like a blue suit. And he had blonde hair that was slicked back, and it was very long, and it was down his back, and he had this, and then basically he was just talking to me about my mission and how I was doing and if everything was going according to plan and was I okay and all of that stuff. And I remember like glancing off beyond him and looking out and seeing like two moons, seeing like a moon and then another moon, but the other moon was like almost in like a crescent, and then the sky was like a purplish pink color. I will never forget that ever. Like I will never forget that. And I really do feel like I was like visited by them. I mean, I've had so many. We could have a whole episode.
Yes,
on the alien experiences I have had. It is weird. Like I wake up with like needle marks. It's so weird. Okay.
We will definitely do those and all of that because you have some stories. Absolutely.
I really do. So, but just needless to say, I feel like it goes beyond. I mean, maybe it's still in the past life category or reincarnation, but I just feel like, yeah, I've definitely had lives off of this planet, just to say that, basically.
Absolutely. And it also kind of links also to the dream episodes that we did, because you will have many nights where you wake up tired because you feel like in your sleep you've been off doing things and helping people, and right?
Yeah. I mean, like what? Sometimes I wonder what the point of sleeping is, because I never feel rested. You know, I always feel like I'm doing something, or sometimes I'll wake up like feeling battered or bruised or like with marks on me and stuff. It's just so odd. But what really connects me with the Pleiadians is their unconditional love that they have. And also the fact that they are like protectors. You know, like they're here to protect the planet. They're here to make sure that everybody kind of does what they need to do and stays in line and gets along. And I just really resonate with that energy. So I highly suggest anybody who's like, star seeds, I highly suggest that you do some research.
Yes, definitely. Anything on this episode where you've been like, that's interesting, or I want to know more, that's what the internet's for. Like, go and find out more. If it's resonating, it's a reason why it's resonating, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, look, we knew this would be, I mean, yeah, it was chaotic in places, but we knew it would be an awesome episode, and it really was, as always, darling. Love talking to you about stuff like this. So we hope that you guys have found it as fascinating as we do, and we'd love to hear comments and thoughts, you know, so let us know. And if you have any crazy, or not crazy, interesting past life experiences or stories, do share, because we love stuff like that, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Share your experiences. Let us know. And it's okay if some of them you would say are crazy. I mean,
we like the crazy. Crazy's good.
It's fine. So, guys, we will not be here next week.
Why?
Because we're quitting. No, because
that's it. We're done. No, not really. We're no episode because I'm moving house.
Yes, she's moving house and she can't do everything.
No, I try. But,
yeah.
You know, representing one of me. So no. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. And actually, I think maybe the alien conversation is because it feels like it's a natural lead. So I think we should talk about that.
Talk about what?
Aliens.
Oh, like, yeah.
Feel like that work?
Yeah, no, I mean, I am totally down for that. There's one experience that I had that I just don't know if I want to share though, because it's very private. And I think you remember the one I'm talking about, but I have plenty, so.
Yeah, that's fine. And we can talk more about that in private, so don't worry. It's all good. But yes, it will be a good episode as always. So look, thank you guys for watching this. We love you. We appreciate you. You guys rock. And yeah, we just hope that everyone has a lovely, gorgeous, fabulous day.
Yep. Love you guys. Bye.
Big love. Bye.